Kia ora tātou. Well, you can take away my microphone, but you can't take away an idea. And ultimately, this country will have something very much like the Treaty Principles Bill, because the idea of equal rights is what the treaty promised, and it's also what allows all people to flourish. And so I'm very proud to be here today. Some people can turn their back, but they can't turn their back on the very real challenges that we face, giving every kid in this country equal rights and equal opportunity. I'm going to be spending Waitangi Day tomorrow opening a charter school, Kura Horua, that teaches in Te Reo Māori, actually the second this week that has opened. And if you look across the government's agenda, we are doing more to solve some of the challenges for all young New Zealanders, including young Māori, than perhaps some of the people who could only turn their back or take away microphones today. I just couldn't help but notice in a speech by Chris Hipkins, he said that coming together doesn't mean being the same. In fact, we should be together and celebrate all the faces of Aotearoa. Well, that sounds awfully like a speech I could give and a reason for Labour to support my bill and its values.
David Seymour, what crossed your mind when they took that mic?
I've got my own mic was the first thing I thought, and this is the truth. You know, you can try and suppress ideas, but actually people have an ability to decide what they think for themselves.
You had your own mic, you were filming yourself.
No, someone else was filming me. I was just wearing the microphone.
Was it all a show for you?
No, I think it's important that the message gets out, regardless of people trying to interfere with your ability.
They told you not to come.
No, actually, I got an invitation from the Waitangi Trust Board and I accepted it.
They say that your own people of Ngāti Rēhia told you not to come. You came anyway.
I've got many ancestries, and Ngāti Rēhia seems to be the only one that says I have to be part of groupthink. Actually, if that's their view, that's a shame. But as I've said to Kippa, if I...
You knew that there could be some trouble and you decided to come anyway. Should you have?
Well, let me put it the other way. Do you think that people should be able to veto free speech and democracy by saying there might be trouble? I don't think that's right. You believe that it's okay to try and intimidate people out of freely communicating their ideas and making up their own mind? I don't.
Do you understand that some people feel like the free speech that you think you're expressing is threatening to them and inflammatory to them?
Well, I don't understand how they think it's threatening to them. Actually, ideas don't hurt. You know, it's trying to intimidate people, take away their ability to speak, threaten them with war dances. Some people might say that that was threatening, but I go along with it because that's tikanga. I think once people say you can't have an opinion because I feel upset, what you're really doing is bringing death to a democratic and free society.
Will you come back next year?
Deliberately, did you come here and give a deliberately inflammatory speech today?
No, I came here and gave a speech that pointed out the real problems as I see them and the fact that this government is addressing them. And they are...
It's like poison.
Yeah, that's actually quoting Shakespeare. I hope that's not offensive to you. But pouring poison in one's ear is a quote from Hamlet about putting mistruths in people's minds, and I believe that's what people have done about my bill.
But a lot of people say that's what you're doing. You're spreading misinformation.
Well, can you give me an example?
You're trying to say that Māori are causing divisions and racist when it seems like that's what you're doing.
No, I've never said that at all. I've said that...
You said that.
When?
Many times.
No.
I mean, on the tiles. Don't lie to me.
No, I've never said that at all. That's why you're not a real journalist. These guys are. And what I have said consistently is the idea that the treaty formed a partnership between races. That is inherently divisive as an idea.
Will you come back next year based on what happened today?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I mean, people get up, they do their war dance. Sorry, you know that is tikanga. I grew up with that in the north. But what is important is that we keep on talking as a country. Some people will disagree with what I said. That's absolutely fine.
Do you not think it's inflammatory to say in a dismissive way they'll get up and do their war dance?
Yeah, well, actually, it's not dismissive. That's what they do, and yet. I beg your pardon?
Why don't you call it a haka?
Well, we've got two languages in this country. One's English, one's Māori. In English, it's a war dance. In Māori, it's a haka. We can use either language. That's okay. Actually, that's not true. It's often been described as a war dance. So.
Did you always plan to come here and give a speech? I mean, Chris Hipkins has spoken about a conversation also being about listening and suggested that perhaps it would have been appropriate for you to come today and listen, given that you do have a platform and you've used that to, share your views on multiple occasions.
Well, he's the leader of the opposition in the Parliament of New Zealand. He's been the Prime Minister of New Zealand. He has a platform too, but he still gave a speech. So I think we can dismiss that one straight away. But let's be honest, I've come here for 10 years. Every year I've been a Member of Parliament, apart from COVID. I've been up here. So to say that it's somehow strange for me to be here, that's not true. I'm always here. To say that giving a speech is strange, that's not true. I always give a speech. And to say that listening to people is not consistent with giving a speech, I always give a speech and listen to people. So I think we can park all that.
Do you want to change anyone's mind?
From people when you were listening?
What I heard was a speech that claimed that we will forever be divided because some people arrived at a different time from others. I'm afraid I just don't agree with that. I heard people say that they have an inherent right that's different from others due to being descendants of Papatūānuku. Well, actually the truth is Māori came here on a boat, like most New Zealanders' ancestors came here on a boat. So, I think we've got to be a bit realistic. I'm listening to what they're saying, but those were the two substantive things I heard in the speeches. I didn't hear people say, we disagree with your bill and we think the treaty should be a partnership, and so I didn't hear that. I was listening for it though.
Do you think your contribution today will have changed the minds of some people?
Yeah, I do, because I watched very carefully. While some people were turning their backs, others actually brought their chairs forward. Maybe that's because they respect tikanga, as I think everybody should, or maybe that's because they're interested in what I was going to say. We'll never know, maybe that's up to them, but nonetheless people can hear what I've said, and I think that's important.
Minister, what reaction were you expecting to your speech?
A mixed reaction. There will be people who will say, these are the values we need, practical problem solving to give every kid in this country equal rights and opportunities, which is what I've always believed in and all I've ever believed in. There'll be other people who will say, we're so committed to this notion of a nation divided into a partnership between races, what you're saying is offensive to me. I could have predicted that, but it's still worth having the debate.
But in terms of what happened on the pai, were you surprised by that turn of events?
No, because one thing you learn from coming to Waitangi year after year is to expect the unexpected.
And was that, do you think, an appropriate reaction? Was that okay? Do you have any issues with it? I asked because Shane Jones said that future funding for the Waitangi Treaty Grounds and the trust here would be contingent on them backing up their ideas.
Well, I mean, first of all, I think it's important, and this is a mistake I believe has been made for many years at Waitangi, to group all people together and allow some people to have their prejudices fanned by saying that the behaviour of some people represents all. I think it's better to say the Trust Board actually is a fabulous organisation. If you haven't gone through this museum while you're here, I really hope you can. The grounds are immaculate. It's a little bit like Cornwall Park. It's a private organisation that does a very, very good job and have really done their best to make this a successful day. I don't think that it would be right to take a couple of people's actions and blame them for it. But yes, I think that, at some point, if you have to get in someone's face to that extent, maybe you don't have a very persuasive argument of your own.
So it was unacceptable for Shane Jones to make those comments in regards to funding and behaviour?
No, it's completely acceptable for him to make the comments, but I personally think it would be wrong to blame the good people on the Trust Board for the behaviour of some other people. Having said that, I'll just concede Shane may have better insight into the identities of the people and some of the causes of behaviour, and maybe that's what he was basing his comments on. I don't know that.
What actions in particular did you consider a breach of tikanga?
Well, I think if you give a speech, then you need a space to be able to give it. You need to be able to have the same rights and the same microphone as everyone else. I think that was wrong. I think when you're in a place where someone has to get right up in your face, and you would have seen that, I just ask you, I don't really mind at the end of the day. I grew up in Northland, I'm used to this stuff, but actually, does it advance the debate? Are you going to persuade anyone that way, or you're just trying to... Oh, that was after the initial speech. It was a group of people that actually came across the across the area of the marae in order to, and specifically to me. And look, I just say to people, first of all, it doesn't really intimidate me. I'm kind of used to it from my life. But second of all, it's not really persuading anyone to your point of view either.
Minister, NZ First were quite strong in saying they wouldn't support the bill. What was your reaction when they were giving that speech?
Well, they've said it before. The funny thing is, Margaret Thatcher once said, if you have to tell people you're a lady, you're not. And my question is why they feel the need to keep repeating it so often.
What did you make of the Prime Minister not being here today? Winston Peters has said it's not a big deal. Do you agree?
Yeah, look, I wrote a column in the Sunday Star Times in 2015, I think, saying I thought that the treaty should go on tour and actually go to different places, in part because the treaty itself was signed in many different places over several months, not just here on one day. And I guess Chris, in a sense, is doing something like that. Look, on the day itself, as I mentioned, I'm going to be down opening Tipene, a Māori language school on the site of the old St Stephen's.
You didn't feel unsupported by him today?
Beg your pardon?
You didn't feel unsupported by the Prime Minister not being here today?
No, I don't rely on Chris for support. I think somebody relies on me for support.
Why do you keep questioning the word of your coalition partners?
Beg your pardon?
Why do you keep questioning the word of your coalition partners? Both of them said they won't support the bill, and you keep saying, we'll see.
Yeah, well, I just wonder why, I just question why they say it so often, that's all.
But you're basically undermining the two people that you, or the two parties that you're in government with.
Not really, I'm just saying that there's got to be a vote. They keep on saying they won't vote for it, but we'll see.
Do you not trust them?
No, I trust them. I just think this is a really important issue. And
Does the
they,
public trust them?
well, no, I just think sometimes people change their minds. And I actually think it's a strength, not a weakness to do so.
Minister,
Yeah.
what do you make of the argument that Christopher Luxon should have been here today and then he could go off tomorrow to wherever he wanted to go in the country?
Well, again, I guess his diary is ultimately up to him. I wasn't part of a discussion about where he would go. What I would say is that he's made a choice, and I think people should respect his choice. In fact, I think generally we should just be a bit more open and tolerant to different people's choices.
Like, say events like the Hikoi and the protest today, does that give you pause at all around your bill and your approach? And the second question, are you concerned at all about the Māori-Crown relationship?
Well, first of all, I'm interested in ideas and having the best ideas and policies for this country to be a prosperous society. So neither the Hikoi nor any protest today has given a countervailing idea or a competing idea to my bill, or said, no, actually we think that New Zealand should be a partnership between races, like the Court of Appeal said, and Dame Claudia Orange likes to say, and Jacinda Ardern said, we want a partnership between races, we don't like your bill. If someone can explain to me a good reason for that, then I'm all over it, but I'm not hearing that from a protest or a Hikoi. The second thing is, and so you had a second question about the relationship.
Like when you see things like that, the expression and that protest today, are you concerned at all about the Māori-Crown relationship?
Yeah, I am, but I would argue that over the last decade, we have increasingly introduced policies which say that you have a different role in our society based on your ancestry. Now, I long warned, the problem with the government saying that to people continuously is that some of them may come to believe it, and I believe that that's exactly where we've got to. That's why our government promotes need not race, and actually solving the real problems of how do you get a house, how do you get education, how do you actually get some sense of hope in your life. That's what will improve the relationship for all New Zealanders, not just Māori.
You don't really believe this, though. Like, you're saying I'm not a real journalist, but even I can see through this bullshit. Like, you're spinning shit. You've started a debate.
It's worse. It's worse than that. You're not even a real comedian.
Okay, well that's fair.
But I'm getting it. I'm getting it.
For a second, I feel like you're setting the narrative and then saying everyone who argues with you is an idiot. When really people have been very clear about their arguments, and you're being dismissive because you want to control the narrative, and you're not in it for ideas. You're in it for asset sales.
Yeah.
And
my God.
creating division to win political votes. That's what I think.
When I grew up as a kid in this country, comedians were funny, they were clever, they were witty. What's gone wrong?
I think I'm all right.
Yeah, I know. You're the only person who thinks that.
Politicians were a bit more honest.
Simon, you got a serious question? I mean, it's so bad. I got to get Simon to ask you a question. No? You're actually. I tell you one thing, Guy. You're giving me a new appreciation of some of these folks.
Okay, that's good.
You mentioned at the start of the stand-up today that across government spending, you think your party is probably doing more for young Māori than the others. You mentioned education in particular, going down to open Tikane tomorrow. There is criticism of the charter schools, the way they've started up, that they actually have far smaller roles and they're not working, not about to work, than anything like the level you suggested. Comment.
Well, first of all, I said that we got budget for 15 and we will open 15. It's a mistake sometimes to open a whole lot of schools all at once. It's sometimes smarter to really do your due diligence, and if we did it the other way, people will probably criticise us for that too. Then people will criticise the roles. Well, actually, you know, the impetus on these schools is to get more students. That's how they get more funding. Because they get funded per student. If you look at, say, Busy, their model, and they've built this up in Australia, they typically double their role every 6 months. So you don't need many years before you've got a school that might have started at 30 or 40, but you know suddenly is in the several hundreds. Beg your pardon?
They're not on the track that you promised in terms of numbers.
Well, I've never actually given numbers before, so it's impossible for that contradiction to be real. So,
Minister,
yeah.
are you,
I almost want to go back to Guy Williams, yes.
Minister, are you proud to be Māori?
I'm proud of all of my ancestry. I'm proud to be part Scots, I'm proud to be English, and I'm proud to be Māori. My question is, why wouldn't you ask why am I proud of all my ancestry?
Yeah, but you've been received like the same treatment since last year. We saw, you know, people talking over you during your speech, and the same thing this year. You're still proud of Māori ancestry?
Yeah, but people do that in Parliament. They don't start asking what their ancestry is and attacking them for their race. I mean, you know, people behave the way they choose to behave. When you start judging them and saying that that behaviour is a reflection on their ethnicity, that's what I call racism.
But you saw members of your own iwi today turn their backs on you. How did that make you feel as, you know, Māori?
Well, it's like that in any family. You know, not everyone that's related to you always agrees with you. It'd be worrying if they did. But at the end of the day, as I said to Kip Munro, mate, that wasn't too bad, was it? And he had to admit it wasn't the end of the world.
Just, given your characterisation there of racism, would you describe the reception that you got here as racist?
No, I think it's a contest of ideas. When you say that a person has to subscribe to a certain idea because of their race, I think that's racist.
Just on that, you kind of brushed off the challenges. You said, you know, you didn't feel intimidated by the response that you received. Did you feel any kind of emotional response as someone who is from here?
No, most of the time I'm just trying to make sure we get the tikanga right. I mean, it's interesting. Jerry, as Speaker, was supposed to be picking up all of the taki, but it's pretty clear that, you know, as a crowd favourite, they wanted me to pick one up, so I eventually responded to that challenge.
Why did you need a bodyguard?
Beg your pardon?
Why did you need a bodyguard?
Well, I didn't, and I don't actually talk about.
Shane Jones?
Beg your pardon?
Shane Jones wasn't a bodyguard?
I don't think he's got any qualifications in that area. But,
Why did he have to come out with you?
he didn't have to. It was his choice.
Did you want him to?
I wasn't really thinking about Shane. I do sometimes think about Shane, just for the record, but I wasn't thinking about Shane then.
Why can you refer to tikanga and take in Te Reo Māori, but you can't refer to Haka and Te Reo Māori?
Well, in answer to your last question, I referred to war dance as a haka and as a war dance, and a haka as a war dance. I mean, we have two languages; they're interchangeable.
Why don't you also use protocols, say, when you talk about tikanga?
Everyone has a different level of understanding. I don't claim to be an expert, but I do my best. And maybe if we, we'll try to be a little bit more positive instead of gotcha, we could all get somewhere.
Do you think people understand Haka?
Beg your pardon?
Do you think most New Zealanders understand Haka?
I'd say most New Zealanders would understand the word haka, yeah.
Māori academics and many experts in constitutional change say you've actually helped educate New Zealanders. What do you say to that?
Well, I'm not surprised. One of the things I've said is that my bill will actually enhance the mana of the treaty. You've got to remember what I've done as I've brought about a bill that is centred on this treaty's important, and so much so that Parliament needs to finish the job of defining its principles. I think that's a very positive thing. Beg your pardon?
Do you think it's backlash?
I think it's a bad thing for people to disagree. People have different views. It's when you try and intimidate them out of expressing their view, or say that their view somehow has to reflect everyone who's got the same ancestry. I mean, it's those sort of things I disagree with. Anyway, folks, have we got any new lines of questioning? Otherwise, I'll leave you all to it.
You're improving the mana of the treaty. That was a wild thing to say. Is it a joke?
Yeah, look, I don't think you're really. It's interesting. I would have thought a comedian would know what a joke was, but maybe that's where you're having trouble. All right, folks. Well, it's been a lot of fun, and I've got a newfound appreciation for the real journalist. Thank you.